Welcome back for the fourth and final part of the Stories of New Atlantis. As the captain approached Kelton, they could hear a strange humming seemingly coming from the massive tree under which he stood. Kelton was happy to see the captain, and he indeed had work for them. He told them that the humming they were hearing were vibrations the tree was putting out in search of a mate. The city of New Atlantis had grown up around this tree, and the mate had likely been cut down in the process. Without the response of the tree's mate, it was simply singing louder and louder over time. Not knowing the upper limit of this phenomenon, Kelton feared that the increasingly intense vibrations could potentially harm people or even the infrastructure of the city. While it could well be that the tree's mate had been cut down, and hope might be lost, save cutting down the singing tree for the good of the city, Kelton had one hope left. After the Narian War, the UC had given a tree to the Freestar Collective, a figurative olive branch. In the severely different climate of Aquila, the tree had died, but they had saved a branch from that tree in their museum in Aquila City. Kelton hoped that with a DNA scraping in the tree branch that he might be able to synthesize a response and quiet the tree. Thus, he dispatched the captain to Aquila City seeking the tree branch. After a jump to the Cheyenne system, the captain came down in the Aquila City spaceport. Founded by explorer Solomon Coe in 2167, the city was much more rugged than New Atlantis. Built mostly from rock and stone, the city was surrounded by a high and thick wall to protect the people from the intensely dangerous native species known as the Ashta. After bypassing an ongoing bank robbery at the local branch of Galbank, the captain made their way to the Coe Museum. Behind the front desk, they met Leah Kasler, the curator of the Coe Museum. She did not take the request to borrow the tree branch well. She had received some requests from Kelton Fresh for the branch and claimed to assume they were some sort of prank. The captain explained that New Atlantis was potentially in danger. The enmity born of the Colony War had yet to abate after 19 years, and Miss Kasler seemed to relish the thought of evil befalling the capital of the UC. The captain sensed that they might have to steal the branch, but luckily their persuasive skills won out, and she handed it over. This came with a demand that it be returned to the Coe Museum when the captain was done with it, but the captain had what they needed. Before returning to New Atlantis, the captain needed to take care of some other obligations. The first of these required stops brought them to Delta Pavonis. Though they suspected the CEO could have been missing in practically any system in the sector, in this case she was purported to be on Coulomb, a moon of the gas giant Faraday. The captain landed and made their way inside. After battling a company of Crimson Fleet pirates, the captain found the CEO at the back of the facility. Though she acted like a mad woman during the fight, charging to and fro, endangering herself repeatedly, once the pirates were dead, she stood defiant, telling the captain they'd get nothing from her. The captain told her that they were there on the behalf of Galbank, and she couldn't believe her luck. She had been kidnapped by the pirates, and now had been saved thanks to her unpaid outstanding loan. She thanked the captain and left before more pirates might have arrived. On one final trip before returning to New Atlantis, the captain jumped to Wolf System in the orbit of Cathonia, home to Primarch Horus. Oh, sorry, wrong franchise, and yes, I know they're not spelled the same. Anyway, the orbit of Cathonia was home to the star station known as the Din. While there had once been a star station known as the Din in orbit over the system's other planet, Etheria, that station had been obliterated by House Varun in the Serpent's Crusade. The UC had rebuilt the station out of spite. Though it had been a hub of activity during the Colony War, it had become a backwater with the armistice. The captain was here to hide Antonio Bianchi's cursed boots. A station worker offered to buy these boots off the captain, but knowing their sinister reputation, the captain chose to store the boots rather than bring ill fortune upon another hapless individual. With the cursed boots out of their hands, the captain returned to the frontier and was soon back in New Atlantis. Before returning to Kelton Fresh, the captain stopped in at the viewport to see how their investment was doing. Nissa told the captain that she was working on getting space to mass-produce the supernova in the well, but that she hadn't heard back from her agent, Sasha Alessio, in a few days. She asked the captain to check in with Miss Alessio if they got the chance. The captain agreed and headed for the Nat. Kelton Fresh was thrilled to have the branch on hand and quickly went to work synthesizing a response vibration for the great singing tree. Within moments the signal was ready to go, and he had a plan for distribution. New Atlantis was home to many SSNN kiosks that broadcast news stories regularly throughout the day. If the captain went to SSNN HQ, they could upload the signal and have it played across the city. The captain took the file and departed. Bypassing the staff, the captain found a diagnostic computer within the SSNN building and uploaded the signal. As they made their way back outside to Kelton Fresh, the strange vibrational sound of a long-dead tree was ringing out across the upper city. Kelton was thrilled. Though the tree was still singing, the vibrations were beginning to subside. They had saved New Atlantis and the tree at the same time. He thanked the captain and celebrated his success. With the imminent threat dealt with, the captain returned to Landry Hollifield at Galbank with news of the rescue of the CEO. He was thrilled with the captain's work and had one more job for them. As much as Landry liked his job, he didn't like sending the captain after this last defaulter. It was a retired mercenary. Unlike the stereotypical mercenary, this man had spent his life taking only good jobs, protecting people and hunting dangerous criminals. Then he maxed out his credits and disappeared. Landry had found the world on which he had settled and asked the captain to take care of it as tactfully as possible. Despite any personal reservations, the captain took the job and headed out. With news of the disposal of Antonio Bianchi's boots, the captain headed first for UC's surplus. The shopkeeper was happy to hear that the cursed boots were finally not on their way back to him. He paid the captain, telling them, "Let us never speak of those accursed boots ever again." Not knowing yet where to find Nissa Marcana's agent Sasha Alessio, the captain started the search at Kay's house. Miss Kay told the captain that she was at the medbay after having been attacked. The captain departed in a hurry and found Sasha in a bed at the medbay. She revealed that she had found a great place for Nissa's production facility in one of the sublevels, but that it had been filled with squatters working under a boss named Fizz. The captain took it upon himself to clean this space out. The sublevel had a low ceiling and was quite filthy. Beyond this, it was half flooded and currently home to Fizz and 6 of his henchmen. The captain spoke to Fizz and found him fairly pathetic. A man with the appearance of approaching middle age, named Fizz, leading a gang of petty thugs while hanging out in a disused sublevel. Though the captain probably could have paid Fizz and his goons to leave, they instead convinced him to leave before UC security cleared them out. With the space clear, the captain returned to Sasha with the good news. It would take her some time yet to recover, so in the interim, the captain returned to Nissa Marcana themselves. Though Nissa was distressed that Sasha was injured, she was excited that her venture could now really get off the ground. The captain headed out into the spaceport outside. With all they had done across New Atlantis, there were only a few parts of the well they had yet to see, so the captain made their way back down. They walked over to the House of the Enlightened. They were about to make their way in when they noticed a member of the Trackers Alliance outside. They spoke with the agent, and she told them one of her old war stories about tracking down a rogue tracker who was planning to sell off a roster of their members. She had to track them down and kill them before they could make that trade. With that, the captain headed down into the House of the Enlightened. Here they found 2 men. The captain stopped to speak first with a man sweeping the space. Brody Jung didn't grow up in New Atlantis and had found living there difficult. Without many prospects, he had ended up living in the well and working for the House of the Enlightened. On the other side of the room stood Andy Singh, the head of the local chapter. Andy explained the history of the House of the Enlightened, how it had started as an intellectual movement based in atheism that had become a humanitarian organization focused on improving humanity through cooperation. The house did what it could for those in the well, and to this end, he had a job for the captain. A man named Tahir Vala had just completed treatment at the medbay. He was recovering from a condition that had temporarily damaged his ability to navigate the well, and he needed help getting home. He had been in a few scuffles with UC security, so while they might have normally been called upon to escort him home, he didn't want their help. Andy Singh asked the captain to escort Tahir from the medbay to Kay's house for a free meal, and then to take him home. The captain agreed and made their way to the medbay. Here, they found Tahir engaged in a minor argument with UC security. An officer was offering to take him home, but he refused. As the security officer left, the captain approached and spoke with him. Once assured that they were there to help him home on behalf of the House of the Enlightened, Tahir agreed to follow the captain. They headed first to Kay's house, where Kay Mason greeted Tahir and handed over a free container of miso soup, as arranged by Andy Singh. The captain took it and escorted Tahir through the well to the courtyard where children played soccer. The captain handed Tahir the soup, and he thanked them for their help. The task complete, the captain headed for the last establishment in the well, Jake's. They had been to Jake's once before, on the behalf of Sandra Fullerton at the Demos Star Yard. She was homesick and had wanted a bottle of Jake's stout, and the captain had retrieved it for her. Today, the captain witnessed a belligerent man named Rick Duran harassing the bartender, Jake. Jake threatened to ban Rick from his establishment, just as he had been banned from Kay's house, and Rick desisted. The captain stopped and spoke with Rick, and quickly found him to be a fool. He claimed to be some sort of dangerous criminal, and threatened to beat the captain, but as soon as the captain accepted a challenge to fight, he backed down, feigning injury. Leaving him behind, the captain spoke with Jake. Jake was generally unfriendly, but happy enough to serve the captain. With that, the captain returned to the spaceport, ready to take on their last mission, collecting a debt for Galbank. After a jump to the Uranie system, the captain came into orbit around the first moon of the 4th world of the system. Though the mercenary they hunted was just as likely to hide on practically any moon in the settled systems, this is where the captain found them. Dropping to the surface, the captain made their way to a habitat under a radio tower, and that's where they found him. He knew why they had come and told them his story. He had toiled for years as a mercenary, working to make ends meet. The funds he earned went back into his business, purchasing arms, armor, and repairs. As he got older, he realized he was never going to make it. He was always just a step or two ahead of bankruptcy. In the end, he maxed out his 10,000 credit limit and went into retirement. Taking pity on the old man, the captain paid his debt, leaving him to live in peace for the rest of his days. In thanks, he gave the captain his sidearm, a pistol he called Solace. The captain left Uranie 4A and returned to New Atlantis. As they entered the spaceport, the captain thought to check in with Sergeant Yumi on their way back to Galbank. As luck would have it, the sergeant had worked for the captain. It seems there had been some sort of act of vandalism and a scuffle at the masked Nat station. While the well was full of graffiti, the upper city didn't tolerate it. There were already officers on the scene, but Sergeant Yumi thought they might need help. The captain agreed to check it out. Upon arriving at the masked Nat station, the captain saw the crime scene. They made their way over and found Officer Markkanen speaking with a witness. After they had reached a breaking point in their conversation, Officer Markkanen then spoke with the captain, explaining a discrepancy in witness testimony. The witness on the platform told her that he'd seen a man wearing a flannel shirt and trucker jacket graffiti tag the wall. When confronted, the man had fled, knocking over a trash can as he ran away from the tram. The description didn't match the one given by the other witness, Functionary Gershon of Mast's Department of Interstellar Affairs. He had seen a man running to board the train. Not only that, he claimed to have recognized the vandal from security records and identified him. The purported vandal's name? Tahir. Because of the conflicting stories, Officer Markkanen suggested they interview Functionary Gershon in person, as he had made his report of the crime over the phone. Before going to meet the functionary, the captain stopped to speak with the other witness. They simply went over his testimony again, including the strange fact that the vandal had been carrying an actual book, A Tale of Two Cities. Most people didn't read books anymore, opting instead for data slates. Regardless, before heading up to speak with Functionary Gershon, the captain made one final trip to Galbank. Landry was happy to see the captain and spoke glowingly of their work. As it was, he didn't have any more work for the captain. Other than potentially paying off a mortgage for a dream home on Niswai, the captain had nothing more to do at Galbank, so they returned to Mast. Within the Interstellar Affairs Department, Officer Markkanen and the captain found Functionary Gershon heading out to go to a meeting. He claimed not to have the time to speak at the moment, but that he would come by the UC security office later that day to make a proper statement. He did offer the captain the ability to search his office, where he had typed up his recollection of the event. The captain and Officer Markkanen made their way back to his desk and had a look around. The captain found a few strange things. First off, he had a flannel shirt and trucker jacket in his trash can. The same clothes the other witness had claimed to see on the vandal. On his desk, Functionary Gershon had a copy of A Tale of Two Cities. Checking on his computer, the captain found both the report he had typed up, but also information that made it clear that he disliked the well and had an animus against Tahir Vala specifically. According to his notes, Tahir had pickpocketed him in the past, but UC Security hadn't investigated further because it had too much else to do at the time and too few personnel to go after a pickpocket. Everything started to add up. It wasn't Tahir that had committed the crime. It was Functionary Gershon. Unable to get justice for a previous wrong done by Tahir, he had cooked up a scheme to get him arrested for vandalism. Unfortunately for him, he was a poor criminal who both brought identifiable items to the scene of the crime and threw away his identity-making disguise in his own trash can. With that, the captain conferred with Officer Markkanen. Together, they returned to UC Security. There, they found Functionary Gershon speaking with Sergeant Yumi. Unaware that he'd been found out, he was chatting in a friendly manner with the sergeant. When the captain had made it clear that they knew it was he, the functionary who had committed the crime, Sergeant Yumi was taken aback. The captain revealed the evidence gathered, and Yumi ordered Officer Markkanen to take him into custody. Though he screamed threats to Sergeant Yumi as he was hauled away, the sergeant was happy with the results. He thanked the captain and told them that he wouldn't need their services anymore. Recruitment had picked up, and the time for part-time security officers was over. The captain bid him farewell and headed back out into the spaceport. Having improved the city as much as they could for the moment, the captain headed back to their ship and blasted into space once more. Alright, that does it for the narrative, but I've got some notes before closing things out. First, I want to make it clear that there are 3 areas where we did not go in this video. Within the House of Ruin Embassy, the Freestar Collective Embassy, and a secret sublevel of Mast. All of these locations feature in the missions of the UC Vanguard and are home to different characters I did not introduce here, including one very interesting character, but I wanted to avoid spoilers on those locations and characters. With that said, along with covering locations and non-quest related individuals, this video is a compilation of the stories of 29 side missions and an unmarked mission within the city of New Atlantis. While the Captain of the Frontier's interactions with the people involved in these missions is of course part of the story, the order in which the player may interact with these stories is not necessarily the same order in which I shared them, nor do these stories necessarily end the way I showed them ending. I'll detail alternate versions of these events now. First, at the end of A Break at Dawn, the captain can keep the wedding ring they recovered from Hugo Fournier, telling Sergeant Yumi that it wasn't stolen, it was a gift from Octavio. Second, in the mission Alternating Currents, the captain can hand the data regarding the salami slicing operation over to Zoe Kaminsky instead of Luisa Reyes. I didn't see any immediate difference between these two in terms of a cash reward, but I assume that Zoe's comment that the Trade Authority will remember their assistance can pay off somewhere else. I have an idea of where, but I'll have to investigate that more when I cover the UC Vanguard Vanguard mission line. Third, the mission coffee run is repeatable. If you wait some time after bringing Donna Rain her first coffee, she'll eventually ask for another and will hand you something useful in return. This isn't an alternate ending, but I thought I should mention it regardless. Fourth, you can hand the olive seed over to the guard as litter in the mission Olive Branch. This ends the mission immediately. Fifth, in the mission Out on a Limb, you can do the dirty work of Emilio Hidek and erase his bad performance reviews. This takes place in the Orion Tower in the residential district. Sixth, in the mission Search and Seizure, you can accept a bribe from Malawi Indiaye, the captain of the Anansi, and tell Sergeant Yumi that there was no contraband on board. He's disappointed, but he accepts the report. Seventh, in the mission Terror Brew, the captain can bring the xenodigested coffee beans to the manager at Terror Brew. The manager pays the captain more and immediately destroys the beans. Her reasoning is that it isn't cost effective to produce the beans, and they can't have their customers knowing there's better coffee out there. I chose to hand the beans over to Markeith Sutherland as, even though I don't like him, I hate the idea of something like this being destroyed so a corporation can maintain a virtual monopoly. Eighth, in the mission The Boot, the captain can sell Antonio Bianchi's cursed boots to the crewman who asks to buy them. If one visits the station after completing the quest, the crewman is found dead, crushed under a fallen crate. Lastly, in the mission Two Tales, Two Cities, the captain can ignore the evidence of functionary Gershon's guilt and arrest Tahir. The mission ends the same way, but with the wrong man in custody. A quick honorable mention. I completed all these missions 3 times over for the purpose of this video. In one instance of doing the mission An Invitation, in which you are inviting people back to the Sanctum Universum for Marcus the Starry, Johann Baptiste, usually found in UC distribution, was way outside the city in the wilderness. I don't know if this was the result of a bug or if he takes long walks, but I thought I should mention it. Next, in other notes, days on Jemison are 49 hours long, which can be determined both by the weight function and by the sign on the door of CJ's. Next, I spoke of the captain of the Frontier speaking with Nadia Mufaz about the defeat of the Crimson Fleet on Vectera, and the fact that she might be interested in 5 additional stories. These stories cover the theft of an artifact from a private collector, a bank robbery in Aquila City, the opening of the Armistice Archives, the confrontation of a criminal shipbuilder in the Freestar Collective, and the outcome of the conflict between UC Sistef and the Crimson Fleet. Once you've completed these missions, you can speak with her and give her your recollection of the events. Next, I want to note my disappointment that there are no Starborn dialogue options in any of these missions. If you watched my Cydonia video, you might remember that I noted a few points in the Red Tape Blues questline in which there were Starborn options. One of my playthroughs of this content was to determine if there were any Starborn options, and it turned out to be pointless. Next, I want modular armor back. In Morrowind and Oblivion, you can mix and match armor pieces. There are slots for boots, greaves, cuirass, pauldrons, gauntlets, and a helm. Ever since Fallout 3, Bethesda has moved away from this model to an outfit hat configuration. Fallout 4 and 76 added the ability to add armor in a modular fashion, but outfits remain a single unit. I've never liked this shift, but I really recognized its absence here with the cursed boots in the quest The Boot. It would have been amazing if they had actually modeled the boots, had them be bright red with gold trim or something like that. It would have been hilarious to see the crushed worker who bought the boots off you wearing said boots while crushed. I'm probably shouting into the void here. It's clearly far easier to have the parts not clip into each other when they're part of an outfit instead of modular parts, but I miss the crazy outfits you could put together. Next, the planets and moons of the Alpha Centauri system are all named for astronauts and cosmonauts, or at least I presume they are. Apologies if I missed anyone or got one wrong. The first planet, Bondar, is named for Roberta Bondar, a space shuttle astronaut and Canada's first female astronaut and the first neurologist in space. Bondar's first moon, Kerbeam, is named for Robert Kerbeam, a space shuttle astronaut who holds the record for the most spacewalks in one spaceflight. Bondar's second moon, Grissom, is named for Gus Grissom, a Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo astronaut. Grissom was the first person to go into space twice and died in the Apollo 1 launchpad test alongside Edward White and Roger Chaffee. I already noted the namesakes for the second and third planet, but in case you forgot, the second planet is named Gagarin in honor of Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space, aboard Vostok 1. The third planet is named in honor of Mae Jemison, a space shuttle astronaut and the first black woman in space. The moon of Jemison, Kurtz, is actually the only celestial orb for which I could not find a namesake, so I assume it's named for an astronaut or pioneer in the Starfield universe. The fourth planet, Olivus, is named for John D. Olivus, a space shuttle astronaut who performed EVAs that combined amount to 34 hours 28 minutes in space. The first moon of Olivus is named Zamka in honor of George D. Zamka, a space shuttle astronaut. The second moon of Olivus is named Voss. I found 2 space shuttle astronauts with the name Voss. James S. Voss, who has completed 5 space flights and tied the record for the longest EVA at 8 hours, 56 minutes, or Janice E. Voss, who has also completed 5 space flights. The third moon of Olivas is named Hawley in honor of Space Shuttle astronaut Stephen Hawley. The fourth moon of Olivas is named Chala in honor of Space Shuttle astronaut Kalpana Chawla, the first Indian woman in space who died in the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster alongside Rick Husband, William C. McCool, Michael P. Anderson, David M. Brown, Laurel Clark, and Elon Rahman. The fifth moon of Olivas is named Lovell in honor of Jim Lovell, a Gemini and Apollo astronaut in both Apollo 8, where he was one of the first 3 humans to orbit the moon, and Apollo 13, where he survived that disaster. Lastly, I have some information about the real-world Alpha Centauri system. Part of the constellation Centaurus, Alpha Centauri was first documented around 150 AD by Claudius Ptolemy in his text, the Almagest. Alpha Centauri is in fact a 3-star star system incorporating Rigel Centaurus, also known as Alpha Centauri A, Ptolemy, also known as Alpha Centauri B, and Proxima Centauri, also known as Alpha Centauri C. Rigel Centaurus, a main sequence star like Sol, is the largest of these stars at approximately 10% greater mass than Sol, and putting off 50% more light. Ptolemy, also a main sequence star, is approximately 10% less massive than Sol, and puts off 50% less light. Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf, an eighth as massive as Sol, and puts off less than 0.2% as much light. In researching this, I learned that mass is hugely connected to luminosity, and the general rule for mass and luminosity is that as mass changes, it changes luminosity to a power of 3.5. Rigel Centaurus and Ptolemy order each other elliptically, coming as close as 11.2 AU and as far apart as 35.6 AU. For clarity's sake, an AU, or astronomical unit, is the approximate distance at which the Earth orbits the Sun. The closest Rigel Centaurus and Ptolemy get is approximately the average orbital distance of Saturn, while the farthest they get is the approximate orbital radius of Pluto. By contrast, Proxima Centauri orbits both the other stars at a distance of approximately 12,950 AU. Because of this orbital distance and its current location within its orbital period, Proxima Centauri is currently the closest star to Sol. While Proxima Centauri is absent from Starfield, both Ptolemy and Rigel Centaurus can be found in-game. While Ptolemy is called Ptolemy, Rigel Centaurus is simply referred to as Alpha Centauri. Alright, I think that'll do it for this video. Follow me on X for lore video announcements at Gaming with Maps. My Discord is open to the public, there's a link in the channel's banner. I stream every Friday evening on YouTube, come check it out if you're interested. If you appreciate what I do here and you want to support the channel financially, you can become a member on YouTube or a patron with Patreon. I want to thank my channel members and patrons, Mesothelioma, 76 of Texas, Dark Malcontent, Real76, Dr. Orion, Samsung Smart Fridge, Night Spearhead, Despy, Electric Head, Hero Cunning, Laced Cake, E, and NB Mole Miner for their support. I also want to specifically thank Dark Malcontent for helping with this video's script. This has been the Irresolute Cartographer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.